This is the forensic psychologist who was tasked with assessing
Line
Amber
3, my
Heard. She's
question
being
was, are
cross-examined by Amber
accusations of
Heard's counsel.
infidelity considered one of
Thank
the
you.
characteristics of a perpetrator, a personality perpetrator of IPV?
The objection.
The question is vague and ultimately ambiguous.
I don't understand the objection.
I'll overrule the objection.
Okay. And your answer under oath
Can
at
you
that time?
remind me of the page? I thought you
Page
would-
270, line 3 was where my question was.
Okay.
And your answer is at line 8. You said it can be, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And interrogating your partner about unfounded accusations of infidelity can be abusive. Would you agree?
It can be if they're unfounded, yes.
Okay. And psychological consequences for a victim of IPV can include diminished self-esteem, correct?
Yes.
Depressed mood,
Yes.
anxiety,
Yes.
fearfulness,
Certainly.
diminished self-agency,
Yes.
feeling powerless,
Yes.
loss of sleep.
Yes.
And IPV is a traumatic stressor. Would you agree?
It is.
All right. And IPV is capable of resulting in PTSD, is it not?
It is.
Okay. And IPV is capable of resulting in other trauma-based disorders, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Amber's medical examination, she was cooperative, correct?
Her psychological, yes. She was cooperative and polite.
Okay. And in the 2 full days of examination, you felt she was polite and answered all your questions, except in one instance where she furrowed her brow when you were asking about friendships in high school, correct?
That's not correct.
All right, let's go to page 275. So we start on 274 with the, was she polite? You said yes.
IPV means
Cooperative,
intimate partner
yes.
violence.
Did she answer your questions? For the most part, yes. This is, now we're on page 275, lines 4 and 5. And then my question was, did she at any time become combative or unfriendly with you or angry? And your answer was, there was one instance in which she appeared annoyed and the posturing forward a bit, more assertive tone, furrowed brow, when I was questioning something, following up on data that had been inconsistent about friendships in high school. Other than that, she was very polite. Is that your answer at that time?
That was my answer at that time, and it's inconsistent with the question you had just asked me.
And would you agree that appearing for this examination with an expert who had been retained by Mr. Depp more than a year earlier might be a little stressful?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, not only had you been retained by Mr. Depp, but what had been communicated by Mr. Depp's team was that you had called Amber Heard a liar and a perpetrator of abuse, correct?
First of all, I'd like to clarify that I was not retained by Mr. Depp. I was retained by Mr. Depp's counsel. And what I can say that, yes, any examinee in a forensic context, you would consider that they're probably stressed.
All right. Would you agree that all perpetrators of IPV have anger management issues?
Yes.
And a large portion of IPV perpetrators have substance abuse issues.
It's one of many factors that correlates with intimate partner violence, but there are certainly many people who perpetuate intimate partner violence who do not have substance abuse issues.
All right, let's go to 131, line 17.
$131, you said?
Yes, line 12 is what I have here. And I'm talking about, you said, and just to give context, remember I was asking you what percentage of people you treat that are perpetrators, and you'd said 5%. Do you recall that, just for substance?
I see that here.
Okay, and then I said, of the 5% that are IPV perpetrators that you've treated over the last 8 years, how many of these perpetrators have substance abuse issues? And your answer was?
I see that I answered with a figure of speech, a large portion.
Okay, thank you. And it's common for the perpetrator to essentially gaslight the victim, accuse them of being the perpetrator. Would you agree?
Are you in a different area, or are you asking me a separate
I'm
question?
asking you a question.
Oh.
And it's common.
Sorry, can you please repeat it?
Yes. And it's common for the perpetrator to essentially gaslight the victim, accuse them of being the perpetrator. Would you agree? That's exactly how it was asked in the deposition. So
I understand it is a compound question. I'll
Okay.
sustain the objection.
And it's common for the perpetrator to essentially gaslight. I don't think that's, Your Honor, it's just, I think it's just one question. Let me try it. To gaslight the victim, isn't it?
That's a characteristic of psychological abuse, yes.
Okay. And it's common then for them to accuse them of being the perpetrator, the victim.
That's a characteristic of abuse from women perpetrated against men. It's actually very, very common. About 90% of male victims of IPV have reported that a female partner who abuses them makes threats to report their partner as an abuser. It's less common for men to make that statement to female partners just because there's
This
less
is not a
potential
Grug W
consequence.
moment. This is real.
Isn't it true, though, that some form of gaslighting is often present in these personality-based IPV scenarios?
Yes,
Okay. And it's distressing for the victim to be accused, is it not?
absolutely,
It causes them a lot of fear,
certainly,
and it causes them a lot of distress.
absolutely, yes.
And in fact, they feel falsely
Bro, look at that
accused,
slow zoom action,
Correct.
dude. Shit is.
Yes,
and they feel
The
paranoid.
court guys know
and
what
they
they're
feel
doing.
frightened,
yes,
afraid that everyone's going to believe the perpetrator, correct?
yes.
And in fact, they're afraid they're going to lose their security, correct?
Can you clarify what you mean by security?
I'll ask the next one. And they're afraid they're going to lose their reputation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about the testing for a moment. You talked about the MMPI-2, but that's not the most recent MMPI, is it?
No, it's the most researched.
Okay. Now, you need to have an elevated, on the MMPI, there was only one section that had elevated
I mean, it is literally
scores,
Corona.
correct?
Yes. Every time I cough, you don't
No,
have to
that's
say
not correct.
Corona
It was
Manga.
the
It
K
actually
section,
is Corona.
correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. And was there any elevated score over 65 on the MMPI?
I would need to take a look at it. If, you know, I provided a 25-page interpretation outline. If you're able to pull that up, I'd be happy to go over any of the individual scores for you.
Can you recall any clinical scales for the MMPI-2 for Amber Heard that were above 65 as you sit there today?
Again, there are multiple scales on this test, 25 pages worth listed. So if you can pull it up, then I can review and give you a confident answer.
What can you recall as you sit there?
I'm hesitant to do that because I don't want to make an error by ignoring hundreds of scales.
I've been
And would you
drinking a
agree
lot of
that
water.
you can't make a pathological determination or diagnosis if the scales are not elevated on the MMPI-2?
I would not agree with that.
Okay. Now, one of the answers that Amber gave is that it's hard for her to feel safe, correct?
What are you talking about the MMPI too?
Yes.
Again, I don't recall. There are 567 items on that. I would need to see her results.
Well, it's a common trauma symptom, isn't it, to not feel safe?
Sure.
And safety concerns are common among women who have been victimized, correct?
Women and men, yes.
Okay, and common especially for sexually victimized people. Would you agree?
Any
the
type of
fuck?
victimization, yes.
Okay, and hard to trust. That's a common after effect of interpersonal violence-related trauma, correct?
Sure.
And memory difficulties. Amber said she felt she had holes. Do you recall that?
I do. And her account was different than typical memory difficulties with trauma.
It is common for individuals who have experienced trauma.
And it's actually
to
not
have-
common. No, it's a symptom, but it's the least common.
In fact, a DSM-5 diagnosis for PTSD includes a, quote, inability to remember an important aspect of the traumatic event, end of quote. Am I correct?
Yes,
Okay. And memory difficulties are a symptom of PTSD, correct?
certain types of memory difficulties, yes.
Okay. Now, do you recall when Amber says the first incident of abuse took place?
I believe it was, the first incident in which yes, so she stated that it was early on in their relationship.
Okay. Do you recall it
I don't recall the exact date off the top of my head.
Do you recall it being a tattoo, something related to a tattoo?
I do.
Okay.
For the record, the reason why you don't, this is definitely somewhat of a Grug W mention, but the reason why you don't personally think it's like fucked up that this person is cross-examining a
Yes, certainly.
professional
or irritable states?
and is like disparaging
Actually,
someone
it's
and their
not so much
personal experience
states
with
when you're
domestic
looking
violence is
at,
because he's
real
a dude,
trauma
and
reactions
the
persistent,
the
it's less of
original
these transient states.
person who
Intimate
came out as a
problems?
victim was
Yes.
the woman in the
Relationship
situation.
difficulties?
Yes.
It's not the most important thing
And these are
in
symptoms
this
you
trial,
also
and it's
attributed
certainly
to
not the
personality
norm,
disorder,
and it's not
Yes,
super
there's some key
commonplace.
differences.
But in this
Now,
circumstance,
let's
that
talk
definitely
for a moment
does fill the role.
specifically about a
Because it's
couple of the,
uncommon. It's just uncommon
profiles
for
on
it
the
to happen,
MMPI.
and it's way
This
more
is
common
not
for
an
it
exaggerated
to be
profile.
real and unnoticed. And that's precisely
No,
why
actually, that was
we're just
something
conditioned
unique
into
when
being
she
like, yeah, it's not
completed
that fucked
objective
up.
broadband measures where the questions, you don't know what the questions are getting at. They seem completely random. She raised scores that indicated that she was trying to minimize any mental issues and appear completely free of pathology. When she took tests that asked questions that were specific to trauma, that's when you'd see these extreme exaggerations.
Attorneys
All right,
always
let's
cast
go to
out on the
page
professional. That's their
337.
job. I'm saying that you're not conditioned into thinking that that's fucked up though. But if she was actually she was advocating for the things she's advocating for on behalf of Amber Heard, you would literally be like, oh fuck her, what the fuck, like you fucking dumb lawyer. Like we've covered trials many times over in this community, and like people fucking respond that way, and I have to sit there and describe to them like what lawyers do. This is a part of their job, right? I'm just saying, part of it is supposed to, part of
The
what you're supposed to
question
do is
on
just
line
like
7,
re-examine your own
This is not an
biases.
exaggerated profile, is it, for her? And your answer under oath at that time was, no, it is not an exaggerated profile. Do you see that?
Yes, we're
That's what
talking
you
about the
testified-
MMPI here.
You
Yes.
testified under oath at that time, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Now, the profile is also not consistent with malingering, correct?
The MMPI-2 profile, it's specific to how she approached this test, and you're correct. For this test, it was a defensive profile, not an exaggerated profile.
So my question on line 10 was, this is not a profile consistent with malingering, correct? And your answer under oath at that time was correct. On this test, it is not consistent with malingering, period, right?
Yes.
That was your full answer. Okay. Now, is it your testimony under oath today that you have not been asked to testify concerning Ms. Heard's behavior in the context of her relationship with Mr. Depp, including any abuse?
That's correct.
Okay. And you have not made any determinations, including any of opinions that Ms. Heard abused Mr. Depp or Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct, that's outside of the scope of psychology.
Okay. And you cannot testify whether Amber Heard suffered any emotional distress as a result of any of the defamatory comments that she has alleged Mr. Waldman made through Mr. Depp made through Mr. Waldman, correct?
What I can testify is that there was no indication of a decline in psychological functioning showing any injury since she's been with Mr. Depp.
You cannot testify one way or the other on that, correct? Your Honor, may we approach?
Okay.
I know I'm biased, and it's so hard to have empathy for Johnny Depp when there's case after case of women who are afraid to come forward or do come forward and not helped by the system. My stubborn messenger's brain can't compute help. Yeah, you should recognize that you have that kind of attitude, and then remember that, like, the reason why you care about women being abused is not because they're women. The reason why you care about them is because they're being abused. And in this situation, if the victim of a domestic abuse case is a man, that should not stop you from feeling that same kind of empathy towards the victim. Victims are still victims regardless of whether they're men or women. It does not matter.
Dr. Curry,
Yes.
in your report, nowhere
At least you recognize that you have misinjury.
provide
You know
any
what I mean?
opinion
Which is like,
of whether Ms. Heard suffered
usually
emotional
it's
distress as a
ironic
result
and
of the
silly
defamatory
and people
statements. Is that
recognize
correct?
it. But,
That's
you know, in a
correct.
situation
Okay,
like
thank you.
this, be
I
a
have no
little bit
further
more
questions.
open-minded, I think.
Dr. Curry, you were just asked a question about malingering
Yes.
and made reference to the MMPI-2. Is there another test that you did to make a determination with respect to malingering?
Yes. So I also, well, malingering is a term that most psychologists, we try to be careful of it because it indicates an intent for secondary gain. I prefer feigning, which you had brought up earlier, because it indicates that somebody is intentionally exaggerating, but I don't know necessarily why. So I think that's a more accurate term in general. On the MMPI-2, yes, there was no exaggerated profile. I also gave her the CAPS-5. I don't know if you'll remember, but that is the clinician-administered PTSD scale consistent with the DSM-5. And on that, there were signs of gross exaggeration. I also looked at the test results that were provided by Dr. Hughes, and on an objective test of trauma, there is a scale specific to intentional exaggeration on that test, and Ms. Heard was in the 98th percentile, meaning that she is she had engaged in extreme levels of exaggeration.
Thank you. You were asked about intimacy problems, relationship difficulties associated with IPV, and you then said that there were some key differences.
Yes.
What are those?
So what you see when we're talking about the personality disorders is there is a very consistent pattern of the aggression, the violence, the irritability. First of all, it's escalated. But second of all, it occurs when there is either, for the borderline component, a threat of abandonment, a perceived slight, feeling like the person is about to leave you, about to walk away to get some space from an argument. It also occurs to a more mild extent, but when there's a loss of attention and a need to manipulate to try to get that attention back. But it's not, when somebody has PTSD, that irritability is sort of at a low, constant level, or it's completely random. For instance, you might have a Vietnam vet who went straight to bars for a period to get into fights with the hope that he would kill somebody and just self-destruct. So it's a very different type of presentation. IPV, it might be more irritability, but that's actually less of a symptom for female IPV victims. Usually what you'll see is somatic symptoms, the depression, a lot of fearfulness and anxiety, but typically more complaints about somatic symptoms.
Okay. You testified that some of the professionals involved in this case had to take their patient at her word. What did you mean by that?
So when you're providing therapy, you're in a very different role than an examiner. When you're the forensic examiner, you're just really looking at data to make a decision. When you're a therapist, you're an advocate for your client's well-being. And in fact, it's considered extremely unethical for a treating provider to ever provide opinion testimony like I'm
Yes,
providing,
I've been kissing the
because
vice
it's so
president.
well-known
Me
in
and
our
Kamala
field
Harris
that you're
both
going
got
to
COVID
have
at the
an
same time.
automatic bias
Okay?
for your client. It's almost
right.
a sense of protection, advocacy, wanting their best, which is why we
Sorry.
also know that it's very inappropriate.
Yes, I gave Kamala Harris COVID, just like I'm about to give you the top of the hour ad break, unless you subscribe, in which case you will have an ad-free broadcasting
We can
experience.
certainly believe our clients, We can support them in their therapy.
That's right. For $5
and
or for
take
free
them
with the
that
Twitch
way.
Prime, you can avoid
When
those ads
giving
at the top of the
opinions
hour,
and
but one is coming
consultations,
right
we
now.
have to be very, very cautious and really only provide the facts.
I was
We
unable
would
to
state
evade
things in
COVID,
terms
but you
of,
can evade
my
the
client
top of
did
the hour ad
report
break.
this.
Here it is.
I saw this. Here was our treatment plan. Here was the diagnosis. It's we're taught, we're trained to stay away from making any sort of opinions, understanding that most of the time, and most of Ms. Heard's providers were just treating Ms. Heard. They had never so much as done an initial interview with Mr. Depp and gotten his whole life story or his symptoms or his side of any of it. And they're going to be advocating, and the treatment relationship is about helping your client achieve well-being, not making formal psychological or psychiatric opinions.
So you're asked a question about a series of doctors. Dr. Cohen, treating physician?
Yes, he was a psychologist.
Yeah. Dr. Banks, treating physician?
Dr. Banks, yes, treating psychiatrist.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes, treating psychologist.
Every one of them had to take Amber Heard at his word, right?
Yes.
Oh, overruled on that.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right.
Those are true that
This
women are
subject-
underdiagnosed with PTSD and
Yes.
overdiagnosed with BPD when the
Yeah,
two
is
conditions
this
actually have a
subject
lot
to
of
recall?
overlap. PTSD is given a lot more compassion than BPD. People with BPD are stigmatized even by mental
Since you're
health
subject to
professionals and they're
recall,
considered
Dr. Curry,
untreatable.
please do not,
BPD diagnoses
discuss
also
your
just
testimony
focus
with
on
me,
how
and
other
please do
people are
not
affected
watch,
by it, which is a
anything
disservice to
of
the
this
person
kind.
with it. The
Okay.
field of
All right.
psychology is
Thank
still
you. You can
extremely
sit there for a
sexist.
moment.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and take our afternoon recess for 15.
That makes sense. There's a 15-minute recess coming. So that's because some people were in denial of the virus and not wearing masks. What? Okay, I don't know what the fuck's going on there. As a man, verbally and emotionally and sometimes physically abused by a man, I still side with Depp. I don't know why he seems scared. And when I see him in public, I can relate to his reactions, which is weird to watch from a millionaire. I mean, being a millionaire doesn't change the reality that, like, you can be fucking abused by abused by your partner. Like, this is one thing that is like kind of weird when people operate this way, when they act like that's not a thing. You know what I mean? Like, you can still be hurt, you can still be shot, you can still be killed, you can still be robbed, you can still be abused, right? It's just, I understand that, like, because of the way that so many people suffer in this economic system, that you are conditioned into thinking, especially in a leftist community, to be like, oh man, fuck these rich people, like it doesn't matter, you know? And in most circumstances, the millionaire that we're talking about is like still being abused by another millionaire. So there's that too. You know what I mean? But these people are 100% still human beings. I guess the main difference is when you're really rich, you're still rich. You know what I mean? You're still, even if you're abused, you're still rich. So there's that. I can't believe you actually felt the need to say that. My friend, I don't think you're aware of the community that you're in if you think that I don't need to say that. There's a couple things that I need to routinely repeat in this community that would otherwise be common sense to most normal human beings. And that is that, like, you know, just because someone is rich doesn't mean that they can't be a victim to abuse and can't be the victim in certain situations. And then the other one is jokes are okay and appropriate, and that you should laugh at them instead of going, this is problematic. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Some people don't see that and don't recognize it. Now, most importantly in this situation, though, this should not be used as an opportunity to be like, look at this. Systematically, women are lying all the fucking time about their abuse, about domestic violence. They are the ones who are actually perpetrating domestic violence. I know that there's a lot of people who are making takes like that, cutting takes like that. Ironic misinjury is laughable in most circumstances because it's not a systemic thing. Misinjury, as in like the opposite of misogyny, women hating men. You know, women toxically hating men it doesn't have any sort of structural issues. Even in most circumstances, because we live in a patriarchal society, the misandrist attitude that allowed, for example, Johnny Depp to not be seen or heard, and for Amber Heard to be seen as like the automatic victim in this circumstance, is still a remnant of toxic masculinity and patriarchy. Sorry to break it to all these people who were looking for an opportunity to say patriarchy doesn't exist. Take a look at this. No, the reason why people don't believe men The reason why people don't believe men is literally still because of toxic masculinity and because of the way that we see men. It's just the truth. The reason why men suffer, the reason why men are less likely to go get psychiatric help is also, once again, because of patriarchy. That doesn't mean that we as men are responsible for the system. We didn't design it the way that we did. We are not responsible for, just like we're not responsible for white supremacy, while we might have some privileges from it, if you are a white man specifically. That doesn't mean that, you individually created it and are upholding it, right? However, the reason why people do not see you as a victim in most situations and tell you to suck it the fuck up, you fucking pussy, just like Amber Heard did, is because of patriarchy. Or remember that gaslighting thing that like lives in my brain, basically, of Amber Heard mentioning like, oh, no one will believe you, Johnny. Like if you come out against me, no one will believe you. Well, that is true. Part of the reason why it's true is because of toxic masculinity and patriarchy. Her saying, you're a bitch. I didn't hit you. I didn't punch you. I just hit you. Don't be a bitch. Don't be a baby. That is toxic masculinity. Amber Heard is taking advantage of that against someone who is a victim in that circumstance. So this is, once again, a issue that prior constructs that we live inside of, such as patriarchy, that has created the system. So the reason why people don't believe Johnny, or did not believe Johnny Depp originally, and immediately assumed the role of him being an abuser in this situation and was doing domestic abuse, was because of patriarchy. So that is something to consider as well. SJW Omega Brain Liberal Brainwash Channel. Dude, if your immediate interaction in this situation where I am siding with the male victim and actually making an accurate assessment as to how male victims unfortunately are often overlooked and overheard, and your reaction to that is Omega Lol, this is such a libtard social justice warrior channel, I urge you to just take a deep breath. Okay, we're gonna walk you through it. Ilhan Omar posted you on her Insta right now, lol. Wait, really? What? Why? It is possible for women abusers to use toxic masculinity to their advantage. Never really thought about it like that. Very interesting insight. Yes, that's what's going on here. It's incredibly easier to avoid an exit situation when you're a millionaire. A lot of people are stuck in abusive relationships for financial dependency. Basically, everything is easier when you're rich. Things are easier when you're rich. With certainty. This is a reality. You're right about that. Things are easier if you are being abused as a rich person. It's easier for you in comparison to being abused as a poor person. However, stating that it's like easy in general is stupid. You're a stupid person for assuming or even implying that it would be easy to get out of an abusive situation. And also, on top of that, you would never say that to someone like Amber Heard. If Amber Heard's original assessment of Johnny Depp being a domestically abusive person was completely 100% correct, and that Johnny Depp was beating the shit out of Amber Heard non-fucking stop, and also on top of that, abusing drugs and whatnot, you would never turn around and be like, well, Amber Heard is rich. Why didn't she get the fuck out of that situation immediately? No one would side with you on that. People would literally look to you and go, shut the fuck up. You're a dumbass. And they would be right to say that to you, by the way. Ilhan Omar did an IG vid to your girl boss sound clip. Shut the fuck up. That's awesome. And the idea that, like, if you're rich, you can't get over, dude, the notion that just because you're rich means that you'll be able to very easily get over crippling addiction issues. And when you're constantly in a cycle, especially in an abusive relationship that, like, reignites your horrible habits and reignites your addiction issues, is silly as fuck. Don't you think it's strange he came after her for the 2018 article? She was advocating for the Violence Against Women Act. Wait, do you think that Johnny Depp is against Violence Against Women Act? That's why he's doing this defamation case? Or do you think the 2018 article directly called him an abusive person numerous times, when in fact there is more to that story, especially with Johnny Depp being abused? Like, this has nothing to do with the political movement behind Violence Against Women Act. If anything, that should frustrate you that Amber Heard was basically tying Johnny Depp to a legitimate legal movement. like a legitimate legislative movement. You know what I mean? And that also that got him completely fucking. But he wasn't mentioned. Oh, okay, that's cool then. You know, that's fine then. You're right. Sorry, I didn't realize because when he started losing all of his jobs and shit. When he started losing all of his jobs and shit, like that was not a big deal. I guess he cares, right? To be fair, if he didn't televise it, the court would just decide in her favor because women are queens, blah, blah, blah. No, I think that, first of all, Amaranth, I don't think the criminal justice system favors women by any means, okay? I think that the criminal justice system is absolutely horrific to female victims. We have a million fucking untested rape kits. Every aspect of our criminal justice system regularly overlooks the rape, sexual abuse, sexual assault, and all the horrifying things that female victims go through. That's why the Me Too movement, which albeit is imperfect and has a tendency sometimes to go overboard and try legislating anyone and everyone, even if it's like a bad fucking date or whatever. That the reason why that became a thing, the reason why that was created and crafted, was because there needed to be something outside of the judicial process, outside of the justice system, for some kind of restitution, because the criminal justice system was not doing a good job dealing with it. So that's the reality. And you still have hella fucking dudes get away with raping women. You have dudes get away with sexually assaulting, kidnapping women, young women, minors. You know what I mean? There's still affluenza, right? So that is not a one-off. There is empirical evidence to suggest that women are more likely to be overlooked and overheard with legitimate cases of domestic violence and domestic abuse than put out a false claim about domestic violence and domestic abuse. But even in that circumstance, the fact that someone could take advantage of this situation, see the momentum growing in favor of I'm a rape survivor. I just find it so hard to swallow. A woman would do this. Confusing because it's hell to go through the course with this stuff. First of all, I mean, that's the what? I mean, I don't know how to respond to that. Women can do this. It's not impossible. That doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. That doesn't mean that women are always lying or anything like that. And anyone who tries to tell you that is a piece of shit. Okay? Also, chatter, I hate to break this to you. Actually, just kidding. I don't hate to break this to you. But if you recall the Time's Up movement, as a matter of fact, that was also popping off after Me Too. A lot of the people that were involved in the Time's Up movement were abusers themselves and literally were taking advantage of the Time's Up movement. And famously, one of the women involved in Time's Up, which is the follow-up to the Me Too movement, right, actually went on to work with Andrew Cuomo and deal with the sexual assault accusations that were coming out about Andrew Cuomo. So, people certainly, people do have this vicious careerist attitude sometimes, and they will go to the lengths that you would normally consider to be insane. They're saying that the courts are hard on rape victims, so it's not fun to go to court, and sometimes they'll avoid court since it's just more trauma. I mean, this didn't go to court, though. This was just discussed in the court of public opinion, in the media. For sure, it's bringing awareness to the fact that men can be victims too. Lots of guys feel like they can't come forward with abuse. Society's rough. Yeah, 100%. Men commit the majority of violence against women and against men. However, that doesn't mean women can't be perpetrators too. And moreover, the idea that men cannot be victims of sexual/domestic violence is a product of patriarchy. Moving beyond patriarchy means understanding victims can be anyone. I agree. Yeah. The idea or the notion that women are victims in every single case is going to be very conclusive about the case, especially given that Amber has yet to take the stand. I'm not conclusive about the case at all. I maintain the position that there is mutual abuse in this situation, even if it's not a 50-50 split. But only one side of this relationship went out and publicly blasted the other, and even throughout numerous occasions said that they would do so and that no one would believe them throughout the relationship. So obviously that is part of the reason why I feel like maybe we were misled originally. about it. The only thing that you can take out, the only inference that you can take out from this situation should be that patriarchy, which is the system that we exist under, for sure, hurts men in numerous ways, including this one, where men are less likely to be heard as victims because they are supposed to have a strong showing, and they're supposed to be strong, and they're supposed to say like, hey, look, you can suck it up. You should suck it up. And that they are incapable of being victims in a domestic violence situation. That's it. That is the toxic masculinity / patriarchy take here. You know how many fools like Fresh and Fit are going to use it to further their grift about how they got the answer from men? Yeah, well, that's going to happen no matter what. That's part of the reason why I'm covering this, even though it seems like it's more so, petty celebrity drama. And even a lot of people in this community have been like, fuck you, I don't want to watch you talk about this because like it's just irrelevant to the grand scheme of things. I think part of the reason why they think it's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things is because maybe it hurts their preconceived notions that there is some unexamined misandry, which is individual and not systemic, obviously, but that kind of is playing a role in their feelings in the matter, in the way that they don't want to see a situation where like a man can be a victim to domestic abuse. But part of the reason why I'm covering it is because I want to be the sane voice in the room, articulating my feelings on the matter rather than allowing it to be discussed by red pill right wingers who will take advantage of this to say all women are bad, all women are wrong. Watch women lie all the time. Okay, without further ado, here's Ilhan Omar and the girl bossing, gatekeeping, slay queening audio.
They are gatekeeping. They are slay queen.
Wait, hold on. What the fuck? Why didn't it work?
Bosses. They are gatekeeping. They are slay queening. They are doing this in the name of Allah, of course. But they are doing girl boss shit. These are girl bosses. They are gatekeeping.
That's awesome.
They are slay queening. They are doing this in the name of Allah, of course. But they are doing girl boss shit. These are girl bosses. They are gatekeeping. They are slay queening. They are doing this in the name of Allah, of course.
I didn't know this was Hasan. Wait, you didn't know that was me? Really? Yeah, no, it is me. No leftovers this week? No, I don't believe we'll be able to shoot leftovers this week for obvious reasons. Good faith question. The trial goes on for another 2+ weeks. Are you going to be covering every day? No. I think people have this idea that only men cannot be victims of domestic violence, but that to be a victim, you yourself cannot have participated in some sort of abuse that took place, even if you're doing so in response. That to them somehow takes away your victim status. I think like meninists and men's right activists will use this against women regularly. Well, they'll be like, if a woman has in any way, shape, or form been abusive, if a woman has in any way, shape, or form been abusive, they will use that as an opportunity to be like, to disparage the abuse that they went through. And that's kind of what's going on here as well, where people are just basically stating like, oh, well, Johnny Depp did some abusive shit too. And I think he did. Okay, I think he did. Whether he did that as a consequence of like defending himself, or whether he did that because he was an addict and was 100% like was going through some shit and certainly ended up manifesting like abusive, physically violent in certain circumstances behavior, which is completely unacceptable for the record. The perfect victim shit is so disgusting. You don't have to be the perfect or even a good person to be a victim of abuse. Remember that it's similar to the justification of what were you wearing or were you drinking? So gross. No, but I think like alcohol and his like relapsing certainly played a role that also got Johnny Depp to engage in sometimes abusive behavior. Like that video of Johnny Depp fucking slamming the cabinets, right? A lot of people who have been in abusive relationships with a man, where the man has been abusive, look to that and go immediately, that's a sign. That's literally like, I've seen that. I've been involved in a situation like that, right? That itself is not obviously the same as like, hitting someone physically or throwing shit at them physically and then cutting their fucking finger off. Okay. That's like, there are varying degrees, right? But if we are to look at varying degrees, if you're, you know, in that situation, Johnny Depp himself is not a perfect victim because he has also behaved in a manner that is abusive. I've hit my cabinets. Am I an abuser? No. But that kind of toxic and explosive behavior is a sign, especially when caught on camera. That kind of toxic and you know, that kind of toxic and like scary behavior could be a sign for additional abuse that may have taken place. And in most circumstances, like in the real world, there is no perfect perfect victim of abuse. That just doesn't exist. So you have to parse through the data as best as you can. Amber stood next to him and laughed and secretly filmed. At no time was she the victim, so stop talking bullshit, dude. They even talked about it at court and figured that out. Do not talk about Saenz as if you were a specialist. Wait, so why did the specialist, like their couples counselor, said that there was mutual abuse then? I'm sorry you got COVID, but you really should have worn a mask. Well, I didn't. I'm sorry, brother, but you should have really worn a mask, okay? Like, good, dude. You're sick. You're annoying fucking liberal. Jesus Christ, dude. You're so annoying. You are so fucking incredibly annoying. Like, this isn't even about, like, safety at this point. It's just to be like, I'm flexing on you. And I would rather have all those Nazi fucks in my QRTs flexing on me and wishing I die than dumbasses in here that are literally virtue signaling, that are supposed to be on my side. You know what I mean? You don't come across as like super woke in this situation. God damn, bro. I literally went to a fucking event. Don't even know if it's actually from Coachella. Okay. I know that it's like a meme to jump on it. And maybe it is. Okay. Sure. Even though like this Omicron variant is supposed to incubate in like 2 to 4 days, which is way beyond Coachella at this point, and I was feeling fine post Coachella. But you know, and the fact that Coachella itself is an outdoor event, and outdoor events do not lead to spikes, as has been proven time and time again, despite what people think originally. It's all good. And also on top of that, I was wearing masks in a lot of occasions, not even because of the COVID fear, even though no one else was, but because I was, you know, worried about getting fucking dusted. I think the reason why COVID cases are rising is because people are just not wearing masks. That's it. You feel sick now? Of course I feel sick. I don't feel 100%. I feel like, you know, 60 or 55%, I would say. Not your fault you have COVID because you have lungs and you were breathing. It's your own fault, really. I mean, look, it just, like, people make it seem as though you're just never supposed to go to, like, you're never supposed to be outdoors, or you're never supposed to go to Coachella, or, like the reality is, like, yeah, if I want to be COVID zero, yeah, I need to be, like, fucking Shanghai. If I want COVID zero, it needs to be like Shanghai. Like, I just never go outside. Straight up. That's just the truth. If you want to avoid COVID, you can't go to Coachella. 100%. Of course. Traveling to Coachella is a risk. Partying at Coachella is a risk. Wearing a mask the entire time is still going to be mitigating the risk a little bit, but no one else is wearing a mask, so it's still a gigantic fucking risk. Chat not only wants you to feel sick, but you must also feel shame. Well, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't. I don't feel shame at all. I'll keep it 100. Like, especially because the only thing that I would feel shame about would be if I gave it to other people. Like, if I gave it to my family members, if I gave it to, like, especially someone who's, like, immunocompromised, especially if, you know, I'm talking to, like, an older person, and given the reality that, like, my interactions outside are extremely limited with the exception of Coachella, I don't feel bad about it, you know? I took the risk, and I got fucking clapped, you know? And also, guess what? Here is the reality. COVID deaths are straight up lower than they ever have been, despite COVID peaking as what many are now considering to be endemic rather than a pandemic, right? You want to know why? Because motherfuckers have, one, new methods of treating COVID, so that's good, but most importantly, because motherfuckers are boosted and vaccinated. I'm boosted and vaccinated. The reason why I'm boosted and vaccinated is so that I can inevitably fucking go out and do shit. You know what I mean? That's the point. We're year 3 on this. You got 2 shots plus the boosters. There's no individual solution going forward. Besides that, I think it's okay to take conscious risk, and the virtue signaling freaks and fuck off. Yeah, 100%. We are all going to get it eventually. What's the point in hiding forever when you're done to protect yourself? I mean,
Okay. All right, thank you.
it's going to be cool when people are mad at you for being around people at events after being boosted and recovered from actually getting it. Yeah. The things that are the things that I'm fearful of are not COVID. Things that I'm fearful of are like long COVID and like all of the other like post-viral consequences. Like I am genuinely worried about that. You will never be able to convince the NEETs, bro. They have viewed COVID as a justification for their lifestyle for 2+ years now. You got body aches at all? Says Carter. A little bit, but not like nothing crazy. I think my body aches come from me working out. I worked out pretty hard this past week. I could understand these takes if you were sitting here whining about it, but you're trying to do some other shit. Shut the fuck up and quit derailing the stream for the rest of us. Oh, you're talking to other people, I guess, not me. But yeah.
All right, thank you. Your next witness.
We call Officer Melissa Saenz by deposition designation.
All right. Like
And
deposition.
just so the jury is aware, for the first hour or so, what you'll hear is questioning by Ms. Heard's counsel. It will then shift to questioning by Mr. Depp's counsel.
All right, thank you.
Please state your name and your business address.
Yes, Officer Melissa Saenz.
We are putting everyone else at risk.
1546
Selfish? Are we not
West
on those
Martin
lib
Luther
media
King
junk?
Jr.
This is the shit that
Boulevard,
holds back real
Los
change? Like
Angeles,
what?
California.
I don't know what you're even saying.
And what is your occupation?
I think you might have
I am a
COVID
police
because your
officer.
brain ain't working too good.
Okay. And how long have you been a police officer?
Going on 12 years.
What year did you begin as a police officer?
2009.
And was that with the LAPD?
Yes, it was.
Did you have any law enforcement experience prior to coming to the LAPD in July of 2009?
No, I did not.
As of May 21, 2016, what was your rank?
Can you repeat the date?
May 21st, 2016.
I was a training officer.
And was that a P3?
Correct.
And as a training officer, were you considered a field training officer?
Correct.
I gotta
And
pee again.
for
I'm drinking
how
so much
long a
water
period
today,
of
so I'm
time
fucking
had you
peeing a lot.
been a training officer.
God damn it. I'll be back in a second.
As of May 21, 2016.
Approximately, I believe, 4 months.
And who was the first officer you trained once you became a training officer at the LAPD?
I don't recall.
When did you start training Officer Haddon?
I don't recall the exact month.
Do you have an approximate?
If the incident was in May, then it's going to be within 2 months of May, before or after.
So are you suggesting that you may not have started training Officer Haddon until 2 months after the May 21, 2016 incident, so he wasn't there?
No, I'm not.
Was it 2 months or less from the time you started training Officer Haddon before the May 21, 2016 incident?
Yes, so I have a probationer for 2 months. So May could have been the second month I had him or the first month I had him.
But you don't recall, as you sit here today, how long you had been training Officer Haddon as of the May 21st, 2016 incident.
Correct.
What does Central Division include?
It encompassed downtown Los Angeles.
In May of 2016, what shift were you on?
I was working nights.
And what would the night shift entail? What was the time from when to when?
It is approximately 6:45 p.m. to 6:45 a.m.
And how many days a week would you work the shift?
Usually 3 days a week.
Typically, what was the range of the number of units that were working on your shift in May 2016 in Central Division?
I don't recall.
I mean, are we talking less than 5, more than 10, more than 25?
There would be at least 5 units. How high over that, I wouldn't know that. Every night is different. The city pulls from different divisions if there's special events going on, so it's constantly changing.
Why can't we hear?
What was the process for checking out equipment in May 2016 after roll call?
We would walk to the window and give them our name and serial number, and they would present us with equipment for the shift.
And what equipment were you given in May 2016 after roll call?
Holy fuck, this is the first
I
time
don't
I've ever seen a
recall.
cop wear a mask. What the
You
fuck?
don't recall any of the equipment you checked out in May of 2016 after roll call?
And they're wearing it during
I don't
Zoom?
remember
What the
that
fuck?
specific day.
Is this
that
a
I
real
checked out
cop? What's
equipment.
going on?
I can tell you what I typically check out, if that's what you'd like.
All right, let's start there.
I usually check out a police vehicle, a taser, a less lethal beanbag shotgun, and a regular shotgun.
Anything else?
No, nothing else.
Do you check out body-worn video equipment?
Yes, if you were trained in body-worn video, then yes, you would check that out.
All right. Were you trained in body-worn video equipment?
I was not.
Have you ever been assigned body-worn video equipment?
Yes, I have.
When?
I don't remember the specific date.
What is your best estimate?
If I had to guess, it would probably be June of 2016.
Why do you think it was June of 2016 that you first were
She
assigned?
can't shut off the Zoom cam like she can
body-worn
shut
video
off her body
equipment?
cam, so the mask is for some level of anonymity.
Because that's the time frame that I remember having to use it. It was new to me. I never used body-worn before.
When did the LAPD start issuing body-worn equipment for Central Division?
This is last
know
year,
that
March
date.
31st, 2021.
When
Oh, that's
approximately?
why. Even then, that's
I
still
don't know. I couldn't
surprising.
give you
I'm
a
gonna be
date.
honest.
Can you name any other officer that did not have body-worn equipment that was on your shift at any time between November 2015 and June 2016, other than you?
I cannot.
Have you had more than one body-worn video equipment?
Body-worn camera, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I have had 2. One in Central Division, and now a new one at Southwest Division where I currently am. The camera stays at their respective divisions.
While you were at Central Division, did you ever get assigned more than one body-worn video camera?
Not to my knowledge.
So to the best of your knowledge, you had the same body-worn video camera throughout the time that you were at Central Division, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you have a recollection of at any time while you were at Central Division, your body-worn video camera not working so you couldn't turn it on during an incident?
Oh, damn, dude.
I do not recall that.
What tools were available
Cops,
to you?
cops not
in May of
recalling their body
2016
camera footage not
for
working.
investigating
A tale.
calls?
A tale as old as time itself.
Can you specify what you mean by tools?
Well, did you have a notebook, for example?
Yes, we carry field officers' notebooks.
Okay. And did you have your own field officer notebook?
Yes.
Can you describe what your field officer notebook looked like in May of 2016?
It's a small, just paper pad that we keep in our pockets to write on.
And do you carry a pencil or a pen with it so that you can take them out during a call and take notes?
I do.
What do you do with your notebooks once you have filled them?
You can turn them into the kit room and they can store them.
Is that what you have done?
I have my same officer's field officer's notebook in my locker.
Since you started?
No, I've had several different ones, but I usually keep them in my locker.
So for the field officer's notebook that you had in May of 2000.
Sooner you all realize Johnny Depp has been running one of the most insidious, highly effective misinformation campaigns in recent history, the better. And people ask why women are so scared to come forward with their abuse stories. Hasan, please, you're too smart for this. I guess I'm a fucking idiot then, dude. Like, that's wild. A wild thing to fucking say. That, in my opinion, actually devalues and is unironically on the opposing side of what, like, the MRA dudes do. Like, straight up. I'm a fucking dumbass then, dude. I mean, you're seeing in this court case, you are literally seeing, and it is a very effective one to go against the preconceived narrative that even in a court was defended in prior civil litigation was defended, where Amber Heard was physically abusive. Amber Heard herself is admitting in audio recordings that she is being physically abusive. There are medical reports of the violent altercations that ended up hurting Johnny Depp to a degree that does not exist for Amber Heard. And you're still like, nope, this is misinformation.
So when you answered calls in May of 2016, you had reports material in your vest as you answered calls? Is that correct?
Yes.
It's Deposition Exhibit number 14. It's a multiple page document. I'm just
people be like, yo, this is a conspiracy. Men can't be abused. Johnny Depp probably cut his own finger off. After all, he said he cut his finger in a text message. That must mean he cut his own finger off, with a knife.
About a week ago.
All right. And what were the circumstances under which you reviewed this document a week ago?
For this testimony.
Now, I asked you some questions about the body-worn video. Are you aware of any other officer being assigned your body-worn video under your serial number?
I'm not aware.
Is there any chance that you could be mistaken about when you were assigned body-worn video?
No, there's not.
And why do you say that?
Because everything is recorded and documented on evidence.com under my serial number. So if a supervisor wanted to enter the database under my serial number, they could watch my videos and see the specific date and time my videos started to record and when the date of my last video was to this date.
All right. And did you go back and look to see what date you started?
I did.
What was the date that you were assigned body-worn video equipment in Central Division?
So the first day that I took out body-worn video was June 16th of 2016.
I'm going to show you this second page of what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 1, it has you summoned to attend and give testimony at a deposition and also to produce certain documents. Do you recall this being issued?
Yes, I do.
And here we go. The documents to be produced. The first of those was all video footage recorded by you.
Like, for the record,
incident
I'm not even
A.
saying that Johnny Depp is like a perfect person or a good guy. I mean, oftentimes when you are an addict, you end up, you know, becoming a bad person. It's a really traumatic and difficult thing that you're putting people in your near vicinity through. Every addict knows this too. You know what I mean? The recovery process is lifelong. That's why it's important to recover. But that does not change the reality that his imperfections do not change the reality that, like, you know, he was getting his ass beat.
The LAPD at any point, supervisors, watch commanders, anyone connected with the LAPD ever ask you whether you had any video footage from the incident of May 21, 2016?
No.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at number 2 here. It says all documents and or communications, including without limitation any notes, memoranda, reports, filings, and or summaries relating to any incident at 849 South Broadway, Los Angeles, California, 90014 on May 21, 2016. Are you aware of any documents or communications that would fit this description?
No.
Now, Officer Saenz, you've had training on domestic violence, correct?
Correct.
Could you tell me what that consists of?
Oh, I can't wait for
We
this one.
received training in the police academy.
Yeah, cops in training. I don't know about
Anywhere else?
that.
Did you have any other type of
I'm gonna go ahead and
domestic
assume it
violence
wasn't
training other than
extensive.
when were
You
in
know
the
what I
police
mean?
academy?
Other than my experience in the field dealing with domestic violence, no, not that I can recall.
And as of May of 2016, would you agree that you had answered over 100 domestic violence calls?
I go to a lot of domestic violence calls every day.
Okay. And you consider yourself to be a specialist in domestic
I'm
violence.
actually
is that accurate?
self-taught. Okay, stop.
I don't
Jack.
understand the title specialist. I don't consider myself specialist.
She's like,
In May of
I know. She's like, I'm a
2016,
specialist.
What was the police officer supposed
I got a lot of
to do
hands-on
when
experience.
the victim of a domestic violence would not respond to questions or cooperate with pursuing charges after a call was placed and the police officers had arrived?
If an individual is uncooperative, we are to check the location to make sure that the suspect is in hiding for the safety of the potential victim, and offer a business card if they decide to speak to us later.
I'm going to ask you to take a look, if you can, at the very left-hand column where it has a number of different categories here, and it has victim shaking, unresponsive, crying, scared, angry, fearful, of why these are included on this supplemental domestic violence report.
To identify somebody's emotional state during an investigation.
And this is specifically with respect to domestic violence, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then if you can turn over to the crime scene section on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there are some categories that include location vandalized / ransacked.
Was it she ain't reading them books behind? Yeah, no, I don't think so. Those are books on the law, my friend. And if there's one thing that cops don't know, it's the law.
In there for making notations for domestic violence supplemental report.
To identify the crime scene at the time of the incident.
Okay. And was it your understanding that these items that they have on here may be significant?
Her ass is not
in
reading.
Determining whether there was in fact domestic violence and improving
Someone said, so
the
are we
case.
just cop haters here? I mean, we're not
Correct.
cop lovers.
And I direct your attention specifically to the evidence section.
So funny when we get normies
and
in
it
here and they're like,
indicates
I want to learn more
witnesses
about this Amber
present
Heard
during
stuff,
domestic
but don't
violence,
really like the criticisms that
statements
this
taken, evidence collected,
brilliant and beautiful woman in the
photos
blue is
taken,
getting.
On there. What is your understanding of the significance of this collecting this information?
It's significant to tell a story about what happened at the domestic violence incident.
Okay. And then if we can scroll down a little bit further to additional questions, there's a series of those, including, has suspect threatened to kill you? Do they possess firearms? Have they ever attempted to smother, strangle, or
My
suffocate
name on social
you?
is Cop Disliker.
And things of that nature. What is your understanding of why you're supposed to ask those questions?
Give you a background on the relationship, an idea of what the victim and the suspect have been through.
Okay, thank you. Just let me ask you the question, Officer Saenz. You did not fill out that supplemental report when you responded on May 21, 2016 to the Broadway call, correct, with Amber Heard?
Correct, it did not meet criteria.
The question I asked was, did you fill out one of those forms?
No, I did not. I did not meet criteria.
Officer Saenz, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as exhibit number 10, and if I can direct your attention to the top, it says Domestic Violence Standards of Review, and it has Field Notebook Divider, Domestic Violence Laws, LAPD Form number 18.30.02. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
It has case preparation. It says, note the complainant's emotional and physical condition. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And then ensure all evidence is gathered and preserved, e.g. bloodied clothing, damaged phones, property. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And it also says ensure photographs are taken of injuries or lack of injury to complainant and accused, and then suggest both a day or two after. What is your understanding of the reasons for collecting this evidence?
The reason why she's wearing a mask is because this is the last year and she's on video.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Because these are fruits of a crime. If there's a crime, this is important to prove that a crime was committed.
And what do you mean by fruits of a crime?
If we're talking domestic violence, the location would be evidence. So if there's, a house is ransacked, then that should be noted in the report. That would be considered evidence.
All right, and then we're going to go to the second page here, and it has ensure photographs are taken of scene and damaged property, e.g. broken furniture, holes in wall, damaged phones, phone card, evidence of alcohol consumption, general disarray. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And what is your understanding of why that would be important?
Same thing, proof of a crime.
Okay. And then it also says canvass location and interview all witnesses, including children, fresh complaint witnesses, neighbors, and local law enforcement. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And what would be the reason for canvassing the location and interviewing all witnesses?
That would be further evidence.
All right. And what is your understanding of what fresh complaint means?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. And then if we go down a little bit further, it also has complainant questions, and it has questions such as length and nature of relationship, but also prior
VLC player is goated, so
unreported,
I respect that. I respect the court
and
using a
what form
VLC
of
player.
violence or abuse has taken. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And what is your understanding of why that would be important?
Because it gives us an idea and background of the relationship.
Okay. And then we go to the next page, and we have a little bit more here. We have the, not too far. And that says how long the abuse has been occurring, any logs or diaries, is there a pattern of alcohol or substance abuse? What is your understanding of why those would be relevant?
Again, because it gives us background on what we're dealing with, what type of relationship this is.
And may help with the proof of the crime?
Correct.
Okay. And then we have identify the person who first saw the complainant after the incident. And it says in parentheses, fresh complaint witness. So I'm kind of guessing that must be the definition. But why would it be important to interview or identify the person who first saw the complainant after the incident?
They probably have the best recollection.
Okay. And also has identify the person with whom the complainant first spoke about the incident, fresh complaint witness. What is your understanding of why that would be important?
Same thing, the best recollection.
Okay. And then we have what have neighbors seen or heard. Why would that be important?
Because it would prove to us that there was an incident if there was other people with the same story as the victim.
Okay. And then we also have, did witness observe how physical injury occurred? Why would that be important?
Because that would tell us that there was a crime, that somebody got injured.
Okay. And then we have statements by the complainant and or accused after the incident. Why would that be important?
Because we're getting our story from the complainant, so
The
what they
Cult of
say is
Jared
everything
Leto
with the
by
crime.
Philion.
All
We'll
right,
watch
let's
that
look at 12
after.
for a
I like
moment.
that.
This is exhibit number 12. It's Office of the Chief of Police, April 9, 2002. And it's a domestic violence victims memo. And it says, purpose, the department is legislatively mandated to provide specific information to victims of domestic violence.
Well, you're a
crimes.
Leto head? No,
And then
I'm
they go
definitely
into
not a
describe
Leto head.
that. What is your understanding of, well, let me go a little bit further because I'm going to try to move through this a little bit quicker. So it says to mitigate this issue, the department has begun to use the Victim Information Notification Every Day, VINE, pamphlet.
Oh, Bald went to
Accomplish
Syria
not
for
only the
50
domestic
minutes in a
violence
50-minute video?
information
Holy fuck.
requirements under Section 13701 of the California Penal Code, but also to provide information regarding the VINE program. Did you have a copy of that pamphlet? Was that something that was given to you?
Yes.
Okay. And was that something that you typically provided then, as it says you should, to victims of domestic violence?
Yes.
What is your understanding of why you were to
I
provide
saw you
the
donated to the
pamphlet?
Amazon Labor
Okay.
Union, and
You
I think it's
understand
really
the
cool, and I
question?
respect that. I did too. Good job.
Yes, because it gives resources to the victims, domestic violent resources, like shelters and phone numbers to provide help.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 11. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do. This is the VINE.
Okay, when you say VINE, is this the pamphlet that
Yeah.
was being referred to? Okay. And it's your understanding that you were supposed to be giving that pamphlet to victims of domestic violence on calls, is that correct?
Correct.
Did you provide a copy of this pamphlet to Amber Heard?
I did not identify her as a victim of domestic violence.
Is that the sole reason why you did not give that to Amber Heard?
Yes, we want to give them to victims of domestic violence.
I'm going to ask you to take a
At this point, Your Honor, Ms. Heard's counsel is asking to move into evidence and publish to the jury Defendant's Exhibit 730.
God damn,
and
that was
Mr. Depp
loud.
has no
Sorry.
objection.
All right, 7:30 in evidence and can be published.
Johnny Depp is not sleeping. He's watching the stream. Not sleeping. He's looking at the monitor in front of him where I'm live and alive. Penthouse 3, PR received call for victim friend Amber assaulted by boyfriend. PR refused to give further. Unit recommend BPD.
Okay.
Keep going.
Second hand from NYPD. Yeah, Johnny Depp. Wave hi to Johnny.
first page.
He's a HasanAbi head.
It's an incident recall from specifically May 21st, 2016. Do you recognize this document?
For the record, he doesn't see the top of the hour ad breaks that I'm about to serve right now, because at the top of the hour there's a 6-second ad break, a contractual obligation.
It's a summary of our
because
radio
he's a
call.
subscriber. He's a HasanAbi head
Right,
and a
and
subscriber.
how
And
is
you
this
too can
recorded?
avoid the top of the hour ad breaks as long as you
By
subscribe for
dispatch?
$5 or for free with a Twitch Prime.
And
If you want an ad-free
How is it
broadcasting experience that is
communicated to you?
uninterrupted. But here's the 1-minute ad
A
break
computer in
now.
our car.
Be like Johnny Depp. You know what I mean?
so
Here's the 1-minute ad break.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at the very beginning of this. It starts out, it obviously has an incident number. Is this your understanding of the incident recall for the report to 849 South Broadway involving Amber Heard?
Yes.
It starts out with 5/21/16 at 20:30:58, which is 8:30:58 or almost 8:31. And it says incident initiated by such and such. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And the next thing that's communicated is Penthouse 3, PR received call from victim's friend Amber, assaulted by boyfriend. PR refused to give further. You see that?
Yes, I do.
Now, when you were
Thank you, Small Trans,
out
for the 5
on
gifted
the
subs.
road, did you see that right away, or did you have to look this up later when it was you that was going to respond?
We review the calls as we're driving to the call.
Okay. Then we have at 5/21/2037, which is 8:37, a duplicate call. Do you see that?
I do.
All right, let's go down to 5/21/16. Officer Saenz, can you go where I just highlighted here? And it's 20:57, which would be what time?
8:57.
All right, and it has STAT:AS. What does that mean? So would that be when you, an officer, hadn't arrived at 849 South Broadway?
Correct.
And then it has, the next entry is 5/21/2016. It has 21/22/57. So that would be 9/22.
Correct.
Okay. And it says, go ahead. I'll have you read this. What does it say after that?
Met with Vic, Chuck loped, verified husband left loped, Vic advised verbal.
Okay, go ahead and go into the next page or next line. Go ahead.
Dispute and refuse to give any further info, issued business card.
Who wrote those 2 lines?
I don't recall.
And what did that mean to you? Those
This is
2
why I
lines
said she
that you
ain't
just
reading
read?
those books.
It's a disposition of what happened at the call.
Okay, can you tell me what that means? I mean, just
Her ass ain't
tell
reading
me
those
in real
books.
person's words what those words are.
Yeah, that we met with the victim. We checked the location. The husband wasn't there. And that the victim advised us that she just had an argument and that she wasn't going to give us any further information. And because we didn't identify a crime, we issued her a business card letting her know that she could reach out to us later if she changed her mind and wanted to cooperate.
Okay, and at what point did you close this incident?
Whatever it says on the screen, let's see, 9/22/57.
Okay, and what did incident closed mean?
That we cleared from the location. We were complete. Done.
Okay. Now, if we could go to page Bates stamp number 12. And do you recognize this document?
I do. It's a summary of all of our calls from that day.
All right, and I believe you testified earlier that you reviewed this document in preparation for this.
Kind of wild that
deposition,
not a
is
single dog
Yes,
was
I did.
murdered
Correct.
on scene.
correct? Okay. And if we
Just
can
a
go
reminder,
down
you know,
to
that is unique.
right here, that's 922, correct? At the end of that?
Correct.
All right. And it says.
Couldn't
242D
2x this?
domestic
Yeah, I don't
violence.
think the
What is
court
that?
has fucking
It's a
Zoomer
code for domestic violence.
Zoomer watching
And
on
what is
YouTube
the-
brain. You know what I mean? Hey, judge, can you 2x this, please? I'm trying to retain this information as fast as
For
possible.
the lunch break, I had just asked you about whether you had believed that you were at the penthouse on May 21st, 2016, for 30 to 60 minutes. Do you recall me asking that?
Yes, I do.
And do you recall testifying that that's what you thought was the time that you and Officer Haddon spent at the penthouse on May 21st, 2016?
Yes, I recall.
Okay. And in fact, it was significantly less, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in fact, it was, you entered from the elevator at 9:04 p.m. and went back into the elevator at 9:19 for a total of 15 total minutes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we've seen the video clips of you getting on the elevator and getting off, and that's where those timestamps come from. Now, once you got off the elevator at 9:04 p.m., the first thing you did was listen for some noise, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then you went around and checked out the outdoor courtyard to see if anyone was outside. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And you saw that there was a woman in the gym who was not related to the incident. Do you recall that?
Correct.
How did you know the woman was not related to the incident?
Because she seemed unfazed. She was just working out.
Did you speak with her?
No, I didn't.
Do you recall what she looked like?
I don't.
Now, did you take any notes during the entire 15 minutes from when you got off the elevator till when you got back on the elevator from the penthouse?
I did not.
Did Officer Haddon, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Did you take pictures or record anything?
I did not.
So after you saw the woman in the gym and looked at the perimeter, you went back to the hallway and you met with what you called a white male who was generic. Do you recall using that term?
They asked me to describe him, yes.
And you
Oh.
said generic, correct? And what do you mean by generic?
He didn't have any identifying, I don't know, nothing that I could remember. I just
Saying
remember
basic.
a male white. Nothing out of the ordinary.
What color was his hair?
I don't even remember now.
Did he have facial hair, a beard, or a mustache?
I don't remember.
Do you recall how tall he was, roughly?
I don't remember anything about him.
Did you ask him his name?
I don't recall.
Holy
Now,
fuck.
the generic white male talked with you. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And when you first saw Amber Heard, she was crying, red-eyed, and was not making eye contact with you, correct?
Correct.
And you asked her a few questions, and it was quite clear that she did not want to speak to the police. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, Amber Heard was visibly upset, so she would look down. Sometimes she would look up at you.
I mean, this
and
was
she
a long time
spoke,
ago. It was
but
2016,
back and
so
forth, correct?
Correct.
What was Amber Heard
she's
wearing
talking about
that
5
night?
years ago. It makes sense that she doesn't remember.
I don't recall.
What hairstyle did Amber Heard have that night?
I don't recall.
Now, when was the first time you were asked to provide details of the events of May 21, 2016?
I don't recall.
Do you recall providing your testimony at a deposition in July of 2016?
Correct.
is that the first time you were asked to provide any details of what your recollection was of the events of May 21, 2016?
Correct.
Okay. And that was roughly 2 months later, is that correct?
Correct.
And how many shifts had you worked in that 2-month period?
I'm not aware. I don't know.
How many calls had you answered in those 2 months?
I don't know that number.
How many of those calls were domestic violence calls in those 2 months?
Bro, how are you gonna
I
know
don't know
that?
that number.
I don't even hate on. I mean, look,
And
I love making fun of cops, but like in this
If
situation,
you
it does make sense that
saw
you can't
any
recall
signs
that.
of injury
Cops
on Amber
respond to
Heard,
DV all the time, you know.
or even just damage to property, would you have been duty bound to make a report?
Correct.
Now, your recollection is that there was no damage to the flat. You searched the entire flat and there was no damage, broken glass, or anything out of the ordinary. Would you agree?
Correct.
Did you see anything, did you observe anything out of the ordinary during this particular call that you answered at the penthouse on May 21, 2016?
I did not.
When you left that call, when you got back into that elevator, do you recall what you were thinking?
I remember being impressed by the penthouse, how big and beautiful it was, yes.
But anything else?
No, nothing.
And just so we can stay on that for a minute, you had not heard of Amber Heard at the time of this report, right, on May 21st, 2016?
Correct.
But you did know that Johnny Depp was an actor, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you didn't know that that was Johnny Depp's penthouse when you reported there, correct?
Correct.
But you, as you just said, were impressed with the penthouse. Would it be fair to say you thought probably somebody with some wealth lived there?
Correct.
Can you bring up plaintiff's exhibit number?
Cops
20?
absolutely make assessments like this to figure out whether or not they will get in trouble for mishandling
Officer
a
Saenz, do
situation.
you recognize this elevator at all?
Yes, I do.
Like
What do you
100%.
recall?
That's the elevator from the location.
Okay. Alex, I'm going to ask you to go to 211940. And as you're moving that, Officer Saenz, I'm
What?
going to ask you to take a look at this and see if you can tell me what you are saying to Officer Haddon in this video clip. That's you, is that correct?
Correct.
And Officer
They
Haddon?
know who
Correct.
butters their bread.
Officer Saenz, can you tell what you were saying to Officer Haddon?
I cannot.
Does it look like you might have said at the beginning that was crazy?
I can't tell what I was saying.
Would you agree, though, that you were quite animated in your discussion with Officer Haddon?
No, I wouldn't agree.
How would you describe your demeanor?
Comfortably talking to my partner.
All right, I'm going to ask you to take a look at plaintiff's exhibit number 17. And while Alex is bringing that up, so your best recollection is that you saw no injuries on Amber Heard, correct?
Correct.
And your best recollection is you saw no property damage, nothing in disarray, nothing out of the ordinary, correct?
Correct.
And if you had seen either of those, you would have had to file a report, correct?
Correct.
Officer Saenz, let me ask you this
Cops
question.
not very good
So
at
we've
looking at.
established that you got off the elevator on the penthouse
Just to be
level
fair.
at 9:04
To be fair.
p.m. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Oh. Do you recognize the
Cops are
person
not very
here?
good at assessing domestic
Yes, I
violence,
do.
historically,
Amber Heard.
notoriously so.
Okay.
I gotta pee again.
And do you see any signs of injury on Amber Heard's face in this picture?
I do not.
Is it your testimony that you do not perceive this cheek to be reflecting an injury on Amber Heard?
Correct, no injury.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at this section here above the eyelid, and now I think with the, I'm going to ask you to take a look at that eyelid. Is it your perception that that eyelid does not reflect an injury? I'm sorry, what was your answer, Officer Saenz?
Correct, no injury.
Okay, and then up above on the forehead level where the redness is and it looks like there's a couple of bumps, is it your perception that does not reflect an injury?
Correct.
Officer Saenz, I'm going to ask you to look at what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 18, close to the time that you alighted from the elevator, correct?
Correct.
Please describe for me what you see in this photograph.
I see a striped carpet with discoloration on the right-hand side of the photo, and what I perceive as, I don't know if that's a reflection, some sort of mark.
Now, you believed and testified, in fact, that you considered the hallways to be very well lit that night, correct?
Correct.
Did you see this, these stains?
No, not that I recall.
Right. Would you agree that those are reddish stains on the right side?
Correct.
What does it look like from your experience?
Like a stain, like from a liquid.
Red wine, possibly?
It could be, yes.
Okay. But you don't recall seeing that in the hallway after you got off the elevator?
I do not.
And you did not investigate this or take any pictures or record anything about it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now let's go to number 19. Do you recognize what is depicted in exhibit number 19?
Yes, it's our business card.
And it has 1A1 on the front of it. What is that?
That's our unit designation.
Okay. And then it has Haddon and a badge number. Is that his badge number?
That is his serial number.
Okay, serial number, thank you. And it has your name, and is that your serial number?
Correct.
Who wrote this on the card?
I don't recall.
Would it have been either you or Officer Haddon?
Correct.
Do you recognize your handwriting?
I can't tell from this.
Now, I think you indicated when you were looking at the incident recall and the CAD summary that a business card had been left. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And why did you leave a business card?
I advised Amber Heard that she could contact us at any time if she changed her mind and decided that she wanted to speak to us and cooperate.
All right, let's go to number 20. Do you recognize this? What's been depicted in this picture?
Yes, I do. It's the back of the business card.
All right, and it says 5/21/2016, and the time is 9:16 p.m. Is that the time that it was written?
Correct.
Okay. And do you recognize the handwriting on this side?
It looks like my handwriting.
Okay. Now it says radio call of dispute. Do you see that?
I do.
Why didn't you put verbal dispute?
Yes, I already took a COVID test.
It didn't.
I didn't ban that chatter. I just was trying to
the
understand
same
what that
thing to
chatter
me.
meant.
And you have refused report on here, correct?
Correct.
Could you just read this next part that you wrote on here?
Sure. Advice can call at later time if changes mind, because she was uncooperative and didn't want to speak to us.
Okay. Now, why did you say if changes mind?
Because I was giving her the opportunity to have a resource if she changed her mind.
But if Amber Heard had no injuries and there was no evidence of any type of physical property issues,
Low-key, the cop did the right thing, by the way,
breakage,
surprisingly.
Then why would it matter if she changed her mind?
It's a courtesy that I I choose to give people when I go to calls.
This
Now,
is
if
actually
Amber
this is
Heard
actually
had
the
called
appropriate
you
thing to do
later,
in this situation,
you
because
had already
like
closed this out and had not written a report and had taken no notes.
because domestic
correct?
violence oftentimes is
Correct.
invisible, especially
But
in
if
front
I'm
of cops and shit
understanding
like that.
your
So
earlier testimony, that if you saw evidence of injury, or if you saw injury of evidence
surprisingly,
of property
you
damage,
sound like a woke
even
idiot.
if the victim did not cooperate,
Dude, you sound like a
would write
fucking
report,
bitch.
correct?
Like every little thing I say, you're just so you're so triggered by like
Officer Saenz,
anything
this
that
is
does not
just
revolve
a,
around your
picture of you
worldview. You're like,
recognize
oh, you sound like a woke
Officer
idiot. Like,
Hyde.
goddamn, dude, get out of your
Yes, I
fucking echo chamber. You're in
Okay,
here.
Officer
Just
Saenz,
you know, sit the fuck down and
is the
realize that maybe some other
timestamp
people
on
have different
here
opinions than you.
of 9:19
You sound like a woke
p.m.
idiot. I'm not going to
39
listen to you
p.m.
anymore. Okay.
Does that comport with your recollection of when you left?
I don't recall what time I left. I'm just going based on the video that is in front
God,
of me.
conservatives are such little fucking triggered babies, dude.
Do you have any reason to believe that's incorrect?
I don't.
Officer Saenz, I'm going to ask you to take a look at exhibit number 24. Okay. Do you recognize the person in this photo?
Yes, Amber Heard.
Okay. Do you perceive there to be an injury or evidence of injury on Amber's face in this photo?
No, I do not.
Did you see this Sauvage Dior ad by Johnny? It's honestly nice seeing some
What is
companies still standing
your,
beside him.
Perception
Fucking insane. Like,
of the redness
I'm not gonna sit here and defend like corporations for standing by Johnny Depp and be like, oh, how nice of them.
She's fair skinned. Her face
Cares?
is flush.
I'm going to ask you to look
on.
at what has been marked as exhibit number 25. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard?
Yes, I do.
Do you see a red mark on Amber Heard's cheek and above her eyelid and above her eyebrow on this picture?
Her face looks flush. Yes, redness.
Okay. And what is your perception of what that is caused by?
Like I said earlier, it's consistent with what I see in her crying.
Right. But you don't think it's consistent with a cell phone being thrown at her?
Correct. It does not look like an injury caused from a cell phone.
Okay. And why not?
Because it's consistent with somebody crying. Her face is flushed.
This was taken on May 21st. I'm going to ask you to look at what has been marked as exhibit number 26. It was, do you recognize this as Amber Heard?
Yes, I do.
Officer Saenz, do you see any redness on Amber Heard's cheek and above her eyelid? And we'll go with those.
I do.
And what is your perception of what the cause of those is, those red marks?
It's consistent with her crying. Her face is flushed.
And is it fair to say that you do not believe that this reflects an injury?
Correct.
And would it also
There are no
be fair to
objections
say
because
that
this was
you
pre-recorded.
would not consider it sufficient to investigate
They're playing the footage of a
further
deposition from March 31st,
whether it's an
2021.
injury?
There's nothing that would stop me
Of
from
a cop
investigating.
of a cop who arrived at the scene of a potential alleged domestic violence incident.
But just so that
The
we're
cop
clear here,
herself
even if the victim doesn't
testified that
cooperate,
Amber
if you
Heard
see
had no
signs
visible sign of injury
you
and still left it open for a
testify
potential
to this,
domestic
you
violence
yourself do
case,
bound to write a report,
hence why
correct?
she was like,
Yes.
she was giving
But
her
in your
card.
mind, you don't perceive this as to be reflective of an injury. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I'm going to ask you to take a look at exhibit number 27. Again, do you recognize this as Amber Heard?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you see redness on the cheek of Amber Heard on this one?
Yes, I do.
All right.
I guess
And
they're
then
also.
You
Oh, they're cutting out the objections. I
you
think too.
testified on a number of these other pictures and on this one as well that this is consistent with crime.
Notice how they edited that.
Do you see any redness on Amber's other cheek?
Yes, I do.
Is it the same or similar to the redness on the cheek, on the right cheek?
Based on this photo, it looks like one cheek is redder than the other.
But you also don't see any swelling with that?
Correct.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as exhibit number 28. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you see redness on the right cheek and above the eye?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And is it your perception that this reflects any type of, or could reflect any type of injury?
No,
Why not?
because my perception is it was consistent with her crying.
All right, let's take this down, go to 29. I'm going to ask you the same questions. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard?
Yes,
And do you see any redness in the right cheek and above the eyelid?
yes,
Okay. And is it your perception that these are not indicative of injury?
yes.
And what is your reasoning?
It's consistent with her crying.
Let's take this one down. Let's go to number 30. Now, you testified earlier that you thoroughly searched the penthouse. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And Josh Drew, the gentleman that you called the generic male, actually took you through, escorted you through the penthouse and the series of penthouses, correct?
Correct.
Officer Saenz, did you or did you not thoroughly search the penthouses on May 21st, 2016?
We did search the penthouse.
Okay. And you used the term thoroughly, did you not?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you feel like you
Chat, of
conducted a
course they ask the
thorough
same question 500
search
times. This is how
of the
court works.
penthouses
This is how
that night?
depositions work.
Yes, I did. I
They
did
have
a
to
sweep
cover
of the
all
location
bases.
for the suspect.
Okay. And when you're talking about a sweep of the location, did you go through every room?
How do y'all not know this? We've done this
Yes,
a lot
every
at
room.
this point.
Okay. And was there anyone escorting you through those rooms?
Yes, the same male that we were met with at the beginning of the call.
That you called the generic male, correct?
Correct.
Now, you also testified a little earlier that this was a very nice series of penthouses, right?
Yes.
Did you interview the woman that was sitting with Amber Heard?
I attempted to. All parties were uncooperative.
What did you say to the woman that was with Miss Heard?
I don't recall the exact words, but I introduced myself to everyone and asked if they seen what happened or know what happened, and they all refused to speak to me.
Did you ask for their names?
I recall, yes, I did ask for their names. Nobody would give me their names.
Now, that's a little unusual, isn't it?
No, it's not. A lot of people don't like us.
Well, is it that they don't like you, or is it potentially that they don't want to, with a domestic violence situation,
That's awesome.
are reluctant to press charges?
That's pretty funny.
Every situation's different. Based on my training experience, where I work, it's usually that people do not like us.
Do you have a
Even people in the
recollection
court
of what
laugh,
the
dude.
woman who was with Amber Heard looks like?
No
Well,
recollection.
cops are aware that they're not
Do you know
liked. That's
what
part of the
color hair
reason
she
why
had?
they're so fucking annoying.
I have zero recollection.
So you don't recall how old she was,
When they
how
respond
tall
to
she
shit.
was, what her hairstyle was, what she was wearing, anything about
They
her.
also consider it
Zero
violence.
recollection.
But
they
somehow
literally
you're
will
sure
act
you
like it's
tried to interview
violent
her and
for
she
you
refused
to-
answer questions.
Yes, it's common practice. I try to interview everyone during my investigation.
So did you pull out your notebook at any time while you were in the penthouse?
I did not. I had nothing to write. No one would speak to me.
Well, how did you know that when you started asking the questions that they weren't going to give an answer?
Because they just looked at me.
But wouldn't you pull out your notebook first and then ask the questions?
I don't know, man.
Then
People
write
usually
down the
call if they
answers
want
as they're
help.
giving them to you?
No, I don't put anything in my hands for officer safety issues until I'm sure that I have something to write.
Sorry, I'm sorry, officer. Can you repeat your answer?
I don't put anything in my hands for officer safety reasons. If I'm not sure I'm going to write, I keep my hands free. When I asked the questions, I got no answers. Therefore, I didn't
She'd be like,
take out any notebooks or pens.
she'd be like, there could be fucking, you know, a situation tactically where someone busts out fentanyl.
At the time that you were talking with Amber Heard and the woman with her?
I always fear for my safety. A potential suspect could have been in the house, so yes,
This is big news,
my
by
guard
the
was
way.
not down, if that's what you're asking.
What did you do first? Did you look at throughout the house to ensure that the person wasn't there, or did you ask the questions first and then look at the house?
I attempted to ask questions first. I can't just go into a
Yeah,
house
there
and
could be
start checking
fentanyl
it
poison
without
darts.
asking questions.
So what questions did you ask first?
I don't recall specific questions.
Do you recall any of your questions?
I don't.
Do you recall any of the answers that you were given?
I don't recall.
Now, we went through the domestic violence supplemental report and some of the
What's the big
guidelines
news?
for
Audio viewer
officers
here?
on
I have
domestic
COVID.
Violence. Do you recall that the crime
That's the big
scene,
news.
a number of the items reflected location ransacked, location vandalized, furniture in disarray?
Also,
personal
Madison
property
Cawthorn was
damage? Do you remember
caught
those
at
being
Charles
items
Douglas
as-
International Airport with a loaded gun. He was trying to go through security with a loaded gun. What a fucking psycho. And also, Joseph Robinette Biden and his team are giving strong indications that they are probably going to take significant action to relieve student loans in the coming months. Possibly all student loan debt relief will be coming.
Did you ever communicate in any manner with the two officers who answered the second call to the penthouse?
I did not.
Did you communicate through
Really
a
good
third
news.
party to the second set of officers relating to the domestic violence call and your determination?
Madison
I did
Cawthorn in
not.
the chat says, I needed it, man.
Did you know the two officers who responded to the second call?
Did
I'm
not.
sorry.
What's funny about
Do
that
you
is
know
that
who
like
they
that
are
could
to
literally
this
be
day?
him because he DMs me to come on the
I did
stream and
not.
shit.
Have you ever spoken to the other two officers about the responding to this call on May 21st, 2016?
I have not.
Have you ever spoken with anyone else about your response and their response to this call on May 21st, 2016?
I have not.
And just so everybody's aware, up until now, you've been listening to questioning from Ms. Heard's counsel. At this point, I believe we're going to shift over to questioning from Mr. Depp's counsel.
God damn, that shit is so fucking loud when they do
I
that
want you
shit.
to focus on the date of the incident that we have been talking about during this deposition, and that is May 21st, 2016. I'll refer to that as the date of the incident. Do you understand what I mean when I say date of the incident?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So as of the date of the incident, for how long had you been a training officer?
Since, I believe, the end of November of 2015.
So between 6 to 8 months?
Yes.
Prior to the date of the incident, for how long had you been a training officer?
4 to 6 months.
He's going to beef up her credentials.
And, as
That's
of
what the
date of
Johnny Depp
incident,
team is doing currently, like
approximately
saying like
how
your
many,
experience, you're a professional, you know what domestic violence incidents look
domestic
like.
violence
Only to
have
further
you-
drive home the point that no such domestic violence had occurred in that scene, on the scene, as the cop had indicated. So that's what the Depp team is doing now.
Yes, that's how I understood it from testimony I read in previous depositions of yours. So it's in the hundreds?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you and you indicated that you proceeded to the incident at the Eastern Columbia building due to what you heard from dispatch, is that correct?
Correct.
Oh
And
my
you
God,
recall as you
DeSantis
sit here
is
today,
standing like Donald Trump.
What you were told from dispatch that led you to the Eastern Columbia?
You're right. He's doing the Donald Trump stance. He stanced up like my man Donald Trump. He's like doing the forward stance, like he's got elevator shoes on. Bro, what the fuck? Yo, DeSantis is literally trying to merge into Trump. He's trying to become Trump.
That it had something to do.
He's gonna run. He's running.
With a dispute at that location.
Correct.
King.
And when you first arrived at the scene of the incident, what did you first do on entering the building?
We met with a security guard in the lobby who escorted us to the elevator.
Did you ask that security guard any questions about the building? Strike that. Did you ask that security guard any questions?
Not that I recall.
Did the security guard escort you up to the penthouse?
They gave us access through the elevator. I do not believe that they came up to the penthouse with us. I believe they just accessed the elevator.
Okay. And when you arrived at the penthouse and exited the elevator, was it just you and your partner, Mr. Haddon, Officer Haddon?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do next?
We tried to listen for any kind of sounds of domestic violence. We checked the hallways. We didn't observe anyone. We went out to a courtyard, didn't observe anyone. And based on what I was just reminded of, there was a woman in the gym who didn't seem involved, was working out, looked fine, nothing out of the ordinary. And then we responded to a door in the hallway, and I knocked and was met by a male.
Okay. Up until that point in time, from exiting the elevator to knocking on that door, did you see anything that indicated a crime?
I did not.
Up until the point where you knocked on that door, did you see or hear or witness anything?
Cops see crime everywhere when they're responding to shit, so that's important.
I did not.
Up until you knocked on that door, did you see anything which you would have considered out of the ordinary?
Cops love seeing crime when no crime exists.
And I guess what I'm asking is, walking from the elevator to the gym and then to the door that you knocked on, were you in the hallway?
Yes, I was in the hallway.
Okay. And during that time period, from exiting the elevator through to knocking on the door, was there anything in the hallway that was unusual to you?
Not that I observed, no.
Did you see any stains on the floor?
Not that I recall.
Did you see any vandalism in that?
What do I
area?
have to say to the people that are saying I'm a Johnny Depp lookalike? I say thank you. I think he's a very attractive man, but my hairline is better.
Area?
I did not.
Okay. And upon knocking on the door, what happened next?
Oh, come on. Don't copium that. I mean, I have a receding hairline as well, but it is fucking literally less receding than his.
I don't remember the exact questions and conversations.
Chad is ridiculous. I'm half his age, motherfucker. He's like 60 years old. Like, can I not have this?
And he said that it was
I'm actually half his age,
and that
you won't even let me have this
apartment.
Let me have this
with his girlfriend. And I asked him if they could step out, and he told me to wait, and he shut the door. And we waited. We waited for them to exit. I don't remember how much time passed by, and they came out, and that's when we were met with his girlfriend and who I know now as Miss Heard in the hallway.
And up until that point in time, did you hear anything that led you to believe that a crime had been committed?
I did not.
Up until that point in time, did you see anything that made you believe that a crime had been committed?
Chad saying we have the same hairline. You're crazy.
Up until that point in time, did you hear anything that made you believe that there had been an act of domestic violence there?
I did not.
Up until that point in time, did you see anything that made you believe that there had been an act of domestic
Why
violence?
is this case televised? Because it's not a federal court case. It's just it's a defamation suit, and it's in Johnny Depp's best interest to win the court of public opinion, regardless of how this defamation suit goes. And he's successfully doing that currently. His entire point is literally to, like, you know, show his side of the matter to as many people as possible. That's precisely why this case is being televised, and a lot of people are watching it. A lot of people are watching it because it's like famous Hollywood celebrities. They're also watching it because Johnny Depp is hot, and so is you know, Amber Heard. And people are intrigued by two Hollywood celebrities. Part of the reason why I'm watching it is because you know, a lot of people are going to use this as an opportunity to cut their own perspective on this matter and try to indicate that this is like systemic and rampant, that like women are bad and wrong all the time. So there's many different reasons why a lot of people are watching it, but it's mostly just celebrity intrigue.
And it was just those three folks?
Correct.
And you were there with your partner, Officer Haddon?
Correct.
Okay. And how, in the hallway, how far were you standing from Ms. Heard?
Yeah, I saw. It is a big L for the Turks. I saw
probably
NS Contact with fucking Ron DeSantis.
2 to 5 feet.
NS Contact is constantly and consistently serving L's for the Turkish
Did you
people
notice any injuries on Ms. Heard?
on a fucking daily basis.
Okay.
Fuck him.
Were you looking to see if she had any injuries at that time?
Yes, I was.
And so you were looking to see if Ms. Heard had any injuries, and you determined that she did not. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And was the lighting good enough in the hallway for you to make that determination?
Yes, the hallways was well lit.
Okay. And at the time, were you wearing any sort of corrective lenses?
I was not.
Although you were not wearing corrective lenses, were you prescribed corrective lenses at the time?
No, I have never worn glasses, and I'm not prescribed. I have good vision.
Okay. And at that time, did you have good vision?
Yes, I did.
At the time you were observing Ms. Heard, did you have good vision?
Yes, I did.
And did you observe any injuries at that time?
I did not.
What did you ask Ms. Heard at that time, if anything?
I don't have an independent recollection. Again, it's been so long. I don't remember specific questions.
Okay. Now, let me just back up a little bit. During the time period from when you left the elevator and when Ms. Heard came onto the hallway, at any time did the generic white male tell you that there had been an act of domestic violence?
No, he did not.
Did he tell you anything that made you think there may have been an act of domestic violence?
No, he did not.
Did he tell you anything that made you believe that a crime may have been committed?
No, he did not.
And during that time period, did you ask him what had happened or what was happening?
Yes, I did ask him, and he just refused to give me any information.
Okay. So now, fast forward to what we were talking about with respect to you in the hallway with the generic white male Ms. Heard and the generic white male's girlfriend. After you observed her and saw no sign of injury, what did you do next?
I advised her that we would be conducting a protective sweep just to make sure that there was no one else in the house. And she agreed if her neighbor, the male, could accompany us with the protective sweep.
Okay. Up until that point in time, did you ask Ms. Heard what happened?
Yes, I did.
And what was her response?
No response. She was uncooperative.
And Officer Saenz, at that time, was Ms. Heard cooperative?
Ms. Heard was uncooperative.
And by uncooperative, does that mean that when you asked her a question, she wouldn't say a word? Did she say something that made you think she was not cooperating?
She wouldn't say anything.
Okay. So just to be clear, you would ask questions and she wouldn't say anything?
Correct.
Protective sweeps usually an
And
excuse
what
to
did you
snoop around
do
without a
at that
warrant.
point?
Yes and no. If there's
After
domestic
the
violence,
protective sweep,
if there is indication that there's domestic
asked
violence on a
her
domestic abuse call, it's
again
not bad that they
if
go
she wanted to
inside,
talk to me, if
because
anything
you know there could be
happened.
further evidence that there is actually domestic abuse
Again, I
happening
don't
on
remember
scene
the
that you could not
specific
see from just
questions
like
that I asked
directly
her,
marks or anything like
but
that.
I asked her questions to establish if there was some sort of crime, who was involved, and again, she wouldn't give me any information. I attempted to ask her friend, the other woman in the room. I even asked the males to wait in the hallway so it could just be us
Not
women
to
in
flex
there.
when my
so we
COVID
could
test was
talk
negative
privately.
today.
Maybe
Fuck
she
you,
felt more
dude.
comfortable that way. Still, the denial.
All the boys are pausy now. Okay,
answer
it's we're popping off positively. Okay,
questions. So I wrote a business card. I advised
that's the hot
her.
thing. That's the hot
she
new
changed
thing in
her
the
mind
summer
that
is
she could
being
call us at any time and we would
testing
respond and help
positive for
her out.
COVID. So
So backing up a bit.
get
to
fucked, get
the
wrecked.
time you were in
Plus
the
L
hallway
plus
with the three of
ratio.
them, and you testified that Ms. Heard was uncooperative. And then you indicated you did a sweep. I want to start with from the point of time in the hallway where she was uncooperative,
I can still taste and smell. Yes.
transitioning to the sweep. How did that occur? Did you ask her if you could look in the penthouses? How did you go from standing in the hallway to conducting a sweep?
Dude,
I
I'm
don't
feeling.
recall.
I don't want to.
No, before you swept the penthouses, did you ask if you could enter the penthouse?
What the fuck?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what was the response?
You guys are ridiculous, dude. Okay.
I can't remember if she gave me a response or nodded her head. I can't remember.
From what you observed,
My
or heard
hairline
from
is
Ms.
literally
Heard,
better. My hairline is
you
literally
took
better.
it that
This
she
photo
was permitting
shows.
you to enter the penthouses and look around. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. Was it more than one penthouse?
There was two.
Okay. And this term sweep we've been using, is that a technical police officer term?
Yes.
What do you mean by conducting a sweep?
It's called a protective sweep, and we do so to make sure
Look.
that there's no other
What is,
individuals
like
that may
this?
be
Look,
victims that are hurt inside
Better.
of the location, or suspects hiding, concealing themselves from officers that would attack the victim after we left the location. So we go in to verify that
I mean, he's
any
58 years
potential
old.
suspects
but
are gone from the location for the victim's safety.
Thank you. And you conducted a protective sweep of two penthouses, correct?
Correct.
What was your understanding of who owned or lived in the first penthouse that you performed a protective sweep on?
It was my understanding that Amber Heard, that it was her home. Again, the gentleman directed us. That's why he came with us, so we wouldn't get lost.
I see. And during your protective sweep during the first penthouse, did anybody accompany you during the entire sweep?
Yes, the only male that was there besides my partner.
Okay. And your partner conducted the sweep with you?
Correct.
Okay. And as to the protective sweep of the first penthouse, did you go into every room of the penthouse?
To my knowledge, yes.
And was your knowledge based on the generic white male leading you around?
Correct.
Was it your understanding that your protective sweep included you looking in every room in the penthouse?
Correct.
I'm not going to have
protective
hair
sweep
by the
of
time I'm
the
his
first
age. Let's be
penthouse.
real. Because I'll do steroids before then.
Did you see anything? led you to believe that a crime had been committed?
I did not.
During the protective sweep of the first penthouse, did you hear anything that made you think a crime had been committed?
I did not.
During the first protective sweep, did you see anything that made you think that an act of domestic violence had occurred?
I did not.
During the protective sweep of the first penthouse, did you hear or see anything? Did you hear or see anything that made you believe an act of domestic violence had occurred?
I did not.
Okay. Upon your completion of the sweep, protective sweep of the first penthouse, up until that point in time,
Yes, you can see what I'm wearing. I'm wearing a Carl Jacobs merchandise sweater, and it's
you exiting
fucking
the
awesome.
elevator up until that point in time, did you hear?
I love all
or
the Carl
see
Jacobs
anything
merch that just
made
came
you
out.
believe that a crime had been committed?
I did not.
And it's comfy as
Up
fuck.
until that
Also, I
point in
feel
time,
good.
did you
I don't feel that bad.
Hear or see anything that made you think
I know-
an act of domestic?
I know some of my haters will wish me dead, but you know, I lived, bitch. Okay, I mean, not to. I mean, it's too early to tell what happens. Maybe it'll get a lot worse, but
Viewing Miss Heard and not seeing any signs of injury, did you? view
very
her
cozy
again
though.
after
I'm
that
feeling cozy. I'm
first
feeling
viewing?
good.
During the
I love-
interviews and
I love
throughout the
my
entire
community.
investigation, I'm constantly scanning her and watching.
You
So
know, I
if
would
see
normally
any
not
other
be able to do any of this
observations that
shit, and I would fucking hate
indicate
it.
any injury or domestic violence.
But even when I'm sick, it feels good
And did
and
you
feels
see
right
anything
to
like
stream.
I did not.
And you didn't see? Did you see anything like that during the entire time period you were on that call?
That's why I do
And-
it through thick and thin.
Do you believe that you had enough time viewing Ms. Heard to determine whether or not she had
My
sustained
COVID
any
fever hit
injury?
104, and I swear it killed so many
Yes, I
brain
did.
cells that my personality changed a lot.
And
I
you
hope it doesn't do
determined-
that to me. I
determined
hope it doesn't
that she
fucking melt
sustained
my
any injury?
brain.
I determined that she did not sustain any injuries.
So other than the conversation you had with her in the hallway, when
That's
you
why I
first
said
got there,
I'm doing the Jordan
did you
flu
have any
game.
other
You know what I mean?
conversations with Ms. Heard?
I did. Inside of the loft or penthouse, sorry.
Okay, was that before or after the protective sweep?
I believe both, before and after. I attempted.
Okay. How many separate conversations did you have with Ms. Heard?
I'll be honest, guys. I already
I
have
don't
mental
recall.
illness and brain damage.
There
Brain
was
damage,
the
mental
one
illness,
in
both.
The hallway.
I use Twitter far too much for me not to have
Before
that.
or after the protective
It's just the
sweep, correct?
truth.
I'm sorry, I missed that answer.
Correct.
Okay.
Like, I look at all my
And-
haters. I have shout out the mental illness.
During the
Like, I look at all my
second
brain
conversation you
rotted
had with her after the one in
haters.
the hallway,
Give them the
how
time of
close
day.
were you to her?
It's just the truth.
The same 2 to 5 feet. She was right in front of me.
Were you close enough to get a good view to determine whether or not she had any injuries?
Yes, I was.
And during that second conversation, did you determine whether or not she had any injuries?
I determined that she did not have any injuries.
At any point in time during the incident, during the date of the incident, did she complain of any injury?
She did not.
During the protective sweep of the penthouse, did you see anything in disarray?
I did not.
Okay. Now, you indicated, let me ask you, did you do a protective sweep of a second penthouse?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did the generic white male accompany you on that sweep as well?
Yes, he did.
What was your understanding of who owned or resided in that second penthouse?
I had no idea.
Okay. Did you, during that second protective sweep, did you walk through every room in that penthouse?
From my understanding, yes, we did.
Okay. And during that second protective sweep, did you see anything that you would say was in disarray?
I did not.
During that second protective sweep, did you see anything that made you believe there had been a crime committed?
I did not.
During that second protective sweep, did you hear anything that made you think a crime had been committed?
I did not.
During your protective sweep of the second penthouse, did you see anything that made you believe an act of domestic violence had occurred?
I did not.
During the protective sweep of the second penthouse, did you hear or see anything that made you believe a crime had been committed?
I did not.
After you performed the protective sweep of the second penthouse, what did you do?
I responded to where Amber Heard was, and I again tried to see if I could get any information from her. I was unsuccessful, and then I issued her the business card and let her know that she could call us back if she wanted to talk.
Did she answer any of your questions?
No, she did not.
At any point in time during the entirety of the incident, did Ms. Heard answer any of your questions?
No, she did not.
During the entire time of the incident, did Ms. Heard complain of any injuries?
No, she did not.
During the entirety of your time at the incident, did anybody say anything that made you believe a crime had been committed?
No, they did not.
During the entirety of the time you were at the incident, did anybody say anything that made you believe an act of domestic violence had occurred?
No, they did not.
Okay. During the entirety of your time at the incident, did you see anything that made you believe a crime had occurred?
I did not.
During the entirety of your time at the incident, did you hear anything that made you believe a crime had been committed?
I did not.
During the entirety of your time at the incident,
They're saying because there was no indication that domestic violence had occurred, there was no crime. Like that's why she's doing a sweep to see if there is a crime. But she's not. This entire testimony for this cop is to show that in one of the pivotal 14 instances where Amber Heard alleged that Johnny Depp physically abused her in this domestic violence defamation suit, this cop is saying that like no such incident occurred. It's important that another fucking and this isn't even just like some random witness that would be biased in favor of one party or the other. This is in the eyes of the court of the law, even though cops are usually not very good at dealing with domestic violence. This cop in the eyes of this court, this is an expert witness, okay, offering expert testimony on whether or not whether or not domestic violence occurred in at least one of the incidents, one of the alleged incidents.
And during the entire time that you were at the penthouses during the incident, did you have any reason to believe that Mr. Depp was affiliated or involved in the incident?
I did not.
Madam Reporter, can you repeat my last question? I lost where I was.
Her lawyer also made the case that he's a nut who destroys property, clearly showing he's an abuser. Dude, being a nut who destroys property when you're fucking spiraling out of control is not a fucking 100% certainty that you are an abusive person.
Question, during the entire
It
time
can
you
be.
were at the
It's obvious that he's
during the
toxic,
incident, did you
but
witness any bruises on Miss
there's
Heard?
plenty more evidence
And there
that
was
she was
not a
abusive to him.
response.
If you're going to use that as an indication that is like a clear-cut
Observe
case of
any
abuse.
injuries on Miss Heard?
Okay. Did you observe any swelling on Ms. Heard's face?
I did not.
Did you observe anything that led you to believe that she was a victim of domestic violence?
And by the way, cops
Alex,
love
if you could
snooping in
pull up,
your house. Like,
Exhibit 2.
so the idea that like they looked for other indications of crimes being committed and not found anything is still significant in this circumstance. It's definitely relevant. It's definitely significant. Cops also love money, though. Fuck does that have to do with this? Both parties are fucking caked up.
So is this going to be Exhibit 57?
Yes. Officer Saenz, do you recall having your deposition taken on July 18th, 2016 in connection with...
Thank you, Bill Vogue, for the 5 tier 1
Mr.
gift
Depp and Ms.
subs.
Heard?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall giving testimony in connection with that deposition under oath?
There is a celebrity
Okay,
privilege
yes, I'm
involved
sorry.
in this situation,
Yes.
but more so just that they're rich because she didn't know who the fuck Amber Heard was regardless.
Accurate and true testimony
But privilege
at
can
that
be
time.
found everywhere, you know? Rich people privilege is a real thing. Just like the
understand
subscriber privilege is a real thing. Like, for example, at the top of the hour, there's a 60-second ad break.
You can recall what Ms. Heard said to you, if anything.
Thank
I
you,
do not have
Guyana
an
Brown,
independent
and Hasan
recollection,
Twitch,
but
and
I
Bill
can
Vaughn for the 5 gifted
go off
subs.
what
You
I've
can
seen here
also
on my
avoid
screen.
ads if you get gifted a sub, if you're lucky. But not everyone is.
Your Honor, we're at 5 o'clock. It looks like we have about 18 minutes left. Do you want to?
You don't have any problem finishing it tonight, do you? Let's go ahead and finish it. Okay. Thank you.
And do you agree with me that your memory of the day
God damn, that
the
shit was loud.
incident
What the fuck?
was fresher on July 18th, 2016 than it is today?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And the incident was May 21st, 2016. This deposition was taken July 18th, 2016. How long after the incident was this deposition taken?
A few months.
Okay. And Alex, if I could have control.
Hey, Johnny Depp have a Z on his hand? What do you mean? Do you think he's like pushing Z?
It's a little delayed, Alex. Can that be fixed, or is that just the way it is?
This is Alex speaking. Yeah, I'm afraid I can't help that. I'm sorry, Mr. Preciado.
That's fine. Officer Saenz, I'm going to start here. Do you see my cursor?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Like, you think he's pro-Russian invasion of Ukraine? Is that what you
The
think?
question is, okay, so we'll get back to that.
I did hear that. I did hear that, like, what is it, like
where
Johnny
you
Depp's
checked the
lawyer
rest
was
of
also
the
fucking a
penthouse.
lawyer for like a
Did you have
prominent
an opportunity to speak with Ms. Heard when you were in the apartment?
prominent Russian or
Answer,
something?
Yes,
Which
I
is
did.
kind of funny that people are
Okay,
trying to
question.
go to that
Okay,
length.
Can you tell us about that conversation? Answer, sure. I asked her what happened. Opening question. She said nothing, and she continued to cry. I said, who do you live with? Who do you live here with? She shook her head as if she did not want to answer. I asked her, are you hurt? Do you need an ambulance? And she shook her head again, no. At that point, I asked her if she would mind if I checked her apartment. And that's when she said no. Officer, does this refresh your recollection of the conversation you had with Ms. Heard at that time?
Yes, it does.
And your testimony that I just read, is that true and accurate?
Yes, it is.
During the entire time period you were at the penthouses on May 21st, 2016, did Ms. Heard say that she had been assaulted in any way by anybody?
No, she did not.
Why did they show up? I don't understand. Did I feel like I missed a part.
During your protective sweep of the two penthouses, did you view anything that you would characterize as vandalism?
I did not.
During the entire time you were at the penthouses on May 21st, 2016, Were you looking for any probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed?
Yes, I was.
And what did you determine?
I determined there was no crime.
What did you determine with respect to an assessment of probable cause?
There was no probable cause of any sort of crime.
Thank you. During the entire time you were at the penthouses on May 21st, 2016, were you wearing...
Bro, I really have not lost my sense of taste at all.
Cameras?
I was not.
Pretty
Are you
crazy.
certain of that?
I am certain.
And how is it that you are certain of that?
Because I didn't start using body-worn video until June of 2016.
Damn, bro. LA cops.
And that's after the date of the incident, correct?
Correct.
Alex, if you wouldn't mind putting Exhibit 9 back up. Officer Saenz, you were shown this document earlier. What is this document?
It is a domestic violence supplemental report.
And do you recall counsel asked you about the victim column and the crime scene column?
Average treatment is around
Yes, I do
3
recall.
months? What the fuck?
Do you also see that there's a suspect column in the middle?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any
This is from
difference
last
between the
year,
victim
bro,
column and the
2021.
suspect column with respect to the box terms?
No difference.
Okay.
Coachella must have been worth, huh?
Did you fill
Dude,
out one
if
of these
you're-
forms in connection with your investigation?
This guy at least doesn't even fucking hide it. You know what I mean? This homie's like straight up, I don't like that you went out. You know what I mean? I don't like that you went outside. I'm gonna be honest, like I'm kind of jealous. Not a big fan. Yeah, it was.
But the fact that you did not fill out that form, is that consistent with your training?
Yes, it is. I wouldn't fill that out because there was no crime. It's not called for.
When you testified during the London trial, at the time, did you believe your testimony was accurate?
Yes, I do.
At all times, you've testified under oath in any legal proceedings, trials, depositions. Do you always give accurate and truthful testimony?
Yes, I do.
And do you have any reason to not give accurate and truthful testimony in connection?
My favorite parasocial arc is like the 25-month subscriber being like, have you informed your past guests that you have COVID? No, dude, I want them to not know. Like, thank you. Like, not only did I fucking literally tweet it out, I also put it on my Instagram and like talked about it multiple times. I have informed them, but thank you. Thank you for your concern. Freaking
Do you see any
weirdo.
difference in connection with the redness on the cheeks of Ms. Heard as between these two pictures?
Yes, I do. The left side the photo's brighter.
Okay. And other than that, would you agree with me that these two pictures are the same? In other words, Ms. Heard's face, the position of her face, everything about her in these pictures is identical except for the differences that you indicated.
Yes.
Okay. And even though these are the same pictures, do you see any difference with respect to the redness on Ms. Heard's face with respect to the two pictures?
Yes, the photo on the left is brighter, causing the redness on the cheeks to what appears to be brighter or exaggerated.
What does it say with respect to, let's concentrate on the picture on the left. Can you read for me what it says in the little box at the very top on the left, under add a title? Do you see a date and a timestamp?
Yes, I see it.
What's it say? Date and timestamp?
Date is May 21st, 2016. Timestamp is 9:25:12 p.m.
And now let's look at the other picture, Exhibit 29, at the same spot. Can you read for me what the timestamp says there?
Yes, it says May 21st, 2016, 9:25:12 p.m.
So both exhibits, both pictures have the same exact timestamp, correct?
Correct.
And even though that's the case, do you still believe that there's a difference between the two pictures as you previously described?
Yes, I do.
Signs, do you see Exhibit 41?
Yes.
Do you recall counsel asking you questions?
Yes.
During your protective sweep of the two penthouses on May 21st, 2016, did you see anything in disarray?
No.
Officer Saenz, I think you answered this, but up until the present, for how long have you been a LA, Los Angeles police officer?
I'm right.
I will be going on 12 years.
Officer Saenz,
I'm right. They're coming after Madison Cawthorn for revealing the truth about
in
cocaine
connection with your
parties.
investigation at the Eastern Columbia building on May 21st, 2016, were you in a rush in any way to complete the investigation?
No.
Were you willing to stay as long as necessary to determine if a crime had been committed?
Yes.
At any point in time during your investigation on May 21st, 2016 at the penthouses, did Ms. Heard ask you to file a report?
No.
Did anybody
Folks,
that you spoke
we
with
like
or
the
saw
truth.
on May 20th?
And nothing but the truth out here, okay? So if it means Madison Cawthorn is getting unjustly attacked for leaking truths about cocaine-fueled orgies that they're doing, then I'm going to say it, okay? Nothing but the truth, so help me God, you know? Sometimes I'm going to say it, and sometimes I'm going to have a
If you had
COVID
witnessed
cough in the
anything
middle of saying it.
that led you to believe that an act of domestic violence had occurred, would you have filed a report?
Yes.
And you, in fact, did not file a report, correct?
Yes. Correct.
And if you had witnessed something that led you to believe that an act of domestic violence had occurred, would you have filed a report even if Ms. Heard had asked you not to?
Yes.
And is that in line with your training?
Yes.
Officer Saenz, you were asked some questions.
And just so everybody's on the same page, we have about a minute and a half of questions for Ms. Heard's counsel at this point.
For the record, I tried to get ivermectin,
Were
and the pet shop would not offer it to me.
in the penthouse, and when you got on, and how much
These
time you
libtards
spent
want me to
at the penthouse
die.
level. I approached it in my earlier.
I wanted to do it for the memes. I wanted to like take some ivermectin on camera for the memes. Now that like multiple studies have come out about its efficacy being non-existent in treating COVID, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
And like,
What time does the timestamp on this picture say for the elevator?
It says 21:04:43.
Okay, that's 9:04:43. Would that be right, PM?
Yes.
And we looked at this earlier. I'm going to ask you to take a look at it again at 21. And so this one has what time?
21:19:49.
All right, and allowing for, and Officer Saenz, you said earlier that you weren't sure whether there were accuracies or inaccuracies in terms of the elevators, but allowing
I wouldn't have been
for
bad.
that there may be any issues at all, would you agree that it still means that you were on and off that elevator in 15 minutes?
Assuming the times are correct, yes.
Okay.
because I wouldn't be
You
taking
asked,
it because I
to
think
look
it's
at a
real.
number of
I would be taking it
pictures
as a
that I had
joke.
shown you earlier
And
that
while
were taken
simultaneously
on the
showing
night
that it's
of
not.
May 21st, 2016, both before, during, and after the time that you and Officer Haddon had reported to to Ms. Heard's penthouse. Do you
Also,
recall seeing those
like,
again?
I wouldn't
When
take
you
a.
asked about that?
I would just do a little dab.
Yes.
You were asked.
Little fucking. I would gum it a little bit. You know what I mean, like cocaine.
Counsel for Mr. Depp to take a look at those again, correct?
Correct.
And the reason why.
And he
The reason why I'm not super worried about it is because like ivermectin is a dewormer, right? But if you take it in like super tiny quantities, it's not gonna like fuck me up. You know what I mean? Like, as a joke, I could fucking do that, and just to see how like disgusting it is. I think you should call Madison and ask him about the fake news. Just saying, yeah, I should call Madison and have him bring me ivermectin.
or Officer Haddon collected relating in any manner to your visit to the penthouse on May 21, 2016?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the testimony for today. Please do not do any outside research and don't talk to anybody about the case, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Make your own research. That's what I do. I always conduct my own research, madam. Never stop me, libtard judge. Do not do your own research.